Here's the beginning. Well, I have proposed this whole model of reality, one that includes all the parts, and according to my careful reasoning, it should help us all feel a lot better. Now, the fact that a lot of people don't feel very good is a problem. But when I figure out something like this, my first reaction is that I want to do something about it. I should practice. I should learn how to do this. I should be better. Well, I must confess that I'm not big on continuing practice. I'm good at starting them, but I don't maintain practices very well. And I have a lot of company in that characteristic. A lot of people don't start practices. A lot of people start them and don't continue them. So the question is, what do we do? In this model, I have set up a perfect hero's quest situation. The holy grail of love and connection is everywhere around us, but we are trapped inside a worldview of our own making. And to reach that holy grail, we have to traverse the boundaries that we have created. So, what do we do? What do people do? Well, if this model that I have proposed is anything like what's really out there, we can't know what's really out there, of course, but if it's close, then it's been this way for a long time. And lots of people have lived in this situation, living inside the worldview that they created through their learned experiences, while perhaps being aware of the golden reality that is just out there. So lots of people have lived their lives in this situation. And what have they done? Well, the most popular option is to simply live in the world that you created. If you like it, you're happy. If you don't like it, you might curse your fate or shake your fist. But most people live their lives in the world that they created. Now, a few people, as I mentioned at the beginning, seem to naturally be connected to the world of love and wholeness that's out there. There aren't very many. A few more people learn to live in this outside world through practices. And most of the practices are associated with Eastern religions, mystic religions mostly. So the practices are meditation, mindfulness, awareness and acceptance. These are the practices that have a long history of allowing us to become engaged in the world that's out there, the world of wholeness and love. So that's one way. It's not very popular here in the West. It's not even all that popular in the East in terms of the fraction of the population that practices it. Now, I should mention that any of the things that we propose to do, any of the things that are going to actually allow us to get past our learned experience and connect with the the holy grail of the world that's out there. Any practice must do the same thing. They must all relearn or help us relearn our learned experiences. The experiences that we learned in fear and trauma. We have to relearn those or replace them or something. But that's the fundamental task of all of these paths. So spiritual practice is one approach. There are some others. Psychotherapy is another. Psychotherapy does not enjoy a very good reputation for its high cure rate, but psychotherapy is attempting to help its clients relearn things, behaviors that are not serving them. So psychotherapy is one possibility. Another possibility, popular here in the United States, is self-help. A lot of self-help books are aiming to produce the same result that we're seeking. Self-help is a very large industry, of course, and lots of people buy self-help books and go to workshops and seminars and such. Doesn't seem to work real well. For all the billions of dollars that we spend on self-help in this country, I have not seen a lot of people emerging into enlightenment. So self-help offers some promise, but it is really, when you get right down to it, a practice. And as I said, lots of people, most people, are not big on keeping up with practices. Now, there's a couple other paths that I should mention. One is a healing presence, a person or a group. Groups can be very therapeutic. And a healing presence, a person who is a healer, can do amazing things. There aren't very many of those around, but groups offering to support people on their journeys, and a healing person can really do wonders. There's another rather indirect path, and that is catastrophe. A few people who experience catastrophe, catastrophe in the form of a devastating accident, a serious illness, a crisis of mental health or of addiction. These kinds of experiences can be transformative in some individuals. Kind of a tough way to go, but for a few people, these calamities, these catastrophes, can have a very beneficial effect. And finally, I'd like to mention stories. Now, I've been aware for a long time that stories are very important. You read that. Stories are important. They teach us how to live. In more primitive cultures, stories were the primary means that the wisdom of the culture was passed on to the upcoming generations. Religions use stories a lot. The Eastern religions have their stories, but the emphasis is more on practice. Western religions also have stories, but the emphasis is more on the stories. There are practices, but in Western religions, Christianity in particular, the main practice is to hear the stories, to hear the Bible readings, basically. Now, I've always thought that stories were rather indirect, and I want to be direct. If I'm conveying information, I should just lay it out there and not make up some story. But stories are important because people will listen to them. People like stories. We are hardwired to relate to stories. So telling stories is a useful way to learn new things. Now, I've also heard that there is a broader definition of stories. Stories are anything that we tell each other to impart information. So stories are, Bible stories or folk stories or myths and things like that. But stories are also science. A cosmology is a story of how our universe came to be. So telling stories is a practice that is acceptable, even interesting to lots of people. So what I've done here with my whole world view is to make up a story. And I hope that by telling this story and having it be appealing and interesting, that I might encourage some people to look outside the box of their learned realities and see if they might want to explore some of the bright world of love and connection that exists outside our learned box.